From level 12, spin fishing here on the Belaya is absolutely worth it. But the big question, of course, is how do you start here on the Belaya? Where do you go? Which fish can you catch here? And above all, with which setup should you fish here when you have just arrived fresh on the Belaya? I am standing here right now with my tutorial account. It is currently level 13, and after the tutorial, we of course already have a pretty decent setup with which you can actually fish excellent here on the Belaya. The huge advantage of this setup is that we have a fantastic casting weight here, and that is also the be-all and end-all for fishing here on the Belaya. Because on the Belaya, we have to cast very small lures. Since the water here is so extremely clean and clear, we need to fish with fluorocarbon and with very small lures as much as possible so that we can outsmart the brown trout and the grayling here. And that is exactly what the starter setup we receive offers us. If the last fish that we catch from level 10 to level 11 was caught with spinning, then you receive this setup once again. All details about the basics are also explained to you in the basics playlist. Of course, also how to start the game in the best way so that you even get this rod in the first place. And even if you do not have this rod, but only the normal starter rod, you can of course already take the first steps here on the Belaya, because even with this rod, you can fish here. Despite everything, it is of course much more worthwhile to fish here with a better setup than with this starter setup because the load capacity is simply not that high. So the clearly more sensible path would perhaps be to simply make some more silver with float rods or with spinning at Elk Lake, and then buy a solid setup, which you can then use here on the Belaya, and which is also so good that you can later still use it on the Tunguska and also still use it on the Yama. So buy one setup, roughly around level 12, and you can then continue to use this setup later all the way into the end game, because it is that good. And this setup is also shown to you here in the video what to buy under level 20. This video is specifically for spin fishing, and you will find exactly the same in every playlist for all fishing styles, each with a video titled What to Buy Under Level 20. If, however, spin fishing is what you like the most, then I simply assume that you have also received this rod. And of course, we'll also start with spinner baits. Yes, and even the spinner baits can be used extremely well here. I just casually cast out again here and simply test whether something is happening. And with spinner baits, it is also the case that you generally retrieve them a bit slower. So try to reduce the speed first so that the spinner baits run relatively close to the bottom. And what you can also always do well are small pauses. That means letting the lure sink down a bit near the bottom and then starting again to pull through smoothly. By the way, this also works extremely well with spinner baits at Elk Lake. So always take a small pause from time to time. Let the lure sink a bit and then start again to pull the spinner up from the bottom toward the surface. Yes, and the most important thing of all when spin fishing here on the Belaya is that you as an angler have to figure out what preferences do the fish have right now. So, what does the fish want at the moment? Which shape does the fish like right now? And which color does the fish like right now? And additionally, at what depth is the fish currently holding? These are all very important, essential points that we as spin anglers must figure out. And these preferences also change regularly. So it is our task to find out which color is currently working, which shape is currently working, and which color works in the current weather. That is the A and O of spin fishing. And this runs through the entire game and through all levels. Every time you fish with artificial lures, these are the important factors here in the game. Specifically on the Belaya, it is the case that we can of course fish very well on this side here. So here, where the rocks are, it is always worth fishing. This is the side where we have much stronger current. On the other side, you can of course also fish quite well, although here you can often fish very effectively on the bottom. Here, spots like this are worthwhile, where there is grass in the water, For example, also for fishing for rough. Or you simply cast out a bit farther, almost to the other bank, there where the tree trunk lies. In that area, for example, you also catch crayfish from time to time. Because the water here is of course not very large, I would not even talk about spots at this water. Spots are everywhere. So if you ask about spots at this water, well then you can say you can fish everywhere. That means you can cast your lure anywhere. The question is not, where is a spot? The much more important question is, what lure preferences do the fish currently have? If you have not yet fully understood the whole topic around spots, then definitely watch the important spot video so that you understand the basics of how such a spot actually works and how we as anglers can influence these spots. In spin fishing, you simply start with a spinner, meaning very simple spinners or spinner baits are what we can use here at the beginning. Spoons can also definitely be used here later on the Belaya, and wobblers are also always worth trying here on the Belaya from time to time. And if you eventually become more advanced in spin fishing, then of course the wacky rig is also worth using occasionally, and topwater lures are really effective. But for the beginning here on the Belaya, the regular spinners are the most worthwhile. Without having to buy anything, you already get various lures at the start of the game, and especially if you did a lot of spin fishing early on, you keep receiving new spinners over time. On my account, for example, I received spinners from the Dragonfly Long series twice. This entire series, Dragonfly Long, is absolutely worth buying. But when we take a closer look at the spinner in detail, we can clearly see that the hook quality is very poor. That in turn means if you want to fish effectively here on the Belaya, the first thing you do is replace the hook, and specifically with a hook with feathers. And when you change the hook, of course, also make sure that the hook matches the lure you are currently using. That means the original hook that is already mounted on the lure is ideal in size. What you can do if you maybe want to catch slightly larger fish is go one size up from that size. Or if you want a bit more bite frequency so that you get more percentages, then you might go one size down. On the Dragonfly Long, size 7 hooks are normally mounted. That means in this case, I am now using a size 6 hook with feathers. And theoretically, you could even mount a 2-0 hook here, but just visually, you can already see that this is not ideal. Even so, you could theoretically build the spinner like this if you maybe want to fish for very, very large fish. But then the question arises, if you want to fish for large fish, why are you using small spinners? So it's really not very sensible to use such a large hook on such a small spinner. So size 6, maybe even size 4, already looks very good. And the hook is not too dominant. And if you later buy the Spiker series, then those already come with a very good hook right from the start. That is also the reason why the Spiker series is so expensive. That means you already have a very good hook attached right away. Originally, it's a size 8 hook. Here as well, you could easily go up to a size 6 or maybe even a size 4 hook, but that is already the maximum. So do not overdo the hook sizes on your small spinners. After all, we are using these lures to fish for small grayling and brown trout with a trophy weight of around 3 kilograms. And if you then go shopping and decide to buy new hooks after all, then of course you buy them at Elk Lake or at Windenbach or at Mosquito Lake. That is where you should buy such hooks because the hooks there are significantly cheaper. Ideally, we do not buy them here on the Belaya because the prices here are far too expensive, and above all, the matching hooks are usually sold out here. So I have now bought myself a hook in size 6 with the red feathers attached, and I remove it every single time and mount it again on the lure that I'm currently using. So in this case, it comes off here now. And because I'm currently looking for brown trout first, I'm now using a golden lure, meaning yellow or gold. Ideally, the spinner has a weight between 4 grams and 6 grams, and in this case, we are now simply replacing this hook here and then mounting the high quality hook instead. So this part here, we of course do not want to use. This is among the worst quality that we can have in the game, with an extremely low load capacity. It should definitely be a proper hook with good quality. After I have now swapped the hook from the silver spinner to the gold spinner, I equip the setup and now simply test right here in front of me whether the brown trout might be available somewhere in this area. And boom, it starts immediately. That did not take long at all. We have sunshine, it is a golden lure, so really a very good combination. What do we have here? That looks like a brown trout. Yes, that is the brown trout. So with sunshine, immediately the first fish, the brown trout that we were looking for, exactly what we wanted here. And this is exactly how you keep testing further. So in the moment when this is clearly working, well then of course I continue and keep testing. So casually cast out and then slowly reel in. And I always make sure that the action bar at the bottom, that this small indicator is always flickering slightly. That means the spinner is rotating properly. This is also a very important point so that you have a reference for how fast you should reel. Or you simply take a short pause in between, let the lure sink a bit, and then start again. Reel 3, 4, 5 times, make a short pause, and then continue. Especially if you mainly want to do spin fishing, it is of course worth investing skill points into spinning. Naturally into the spinning reel, into the spinning rod, and into the spinner. By having points in the spinning reel and in the spinning rod, you gain more casting distance. That is absolutely essential so that you can cast really far here on the Belaya. And the invested skill points in the spinner ensure that you catch more large fish or even have a higher chance for a trophy. With my tutorial account, I have not yet distributed any skill points. There will also be a detailed video about this. So, cast out to the maximum. Maybe let the lure sink a little at first. Always make sure that the drag is initially set a bit loose. Slowly and steadily reel in and make sure that the action bar at the bottom is flickering nicely. And of course, you also have to adjust the speed depending on whether you are pulling the spinner with the current or lifting it against the current. In the moment when the spinner moves further into the current, I could already reduce the speed so that the indicator at the bottom continues to flicker. So this is a very important point, that you always pay attention to where the lure is and whether the lure is still reacting properly at all. Because I have not invested any skill points yet, I'm now testing a larger lure so that I can cast farther. That means, in this case, I remove the hook again and mount the hook onto this lure here. This one is of course significantly larger and already right at the upper limit. We are dealing here with 6 grams or 7 grams as lure weight. And the Dragonfly Streamer 2 series is actually also right at the size limit for lures that work really well here. Because from a certain size onwards, you simply catch significantly fewer fish. So make sure that you do not use lures that are too large. As already mentioned, spinners between 4 grams and 6 grams are ideal sizes for fishing here on the Belaya. The weather conditions are of course also absolutely crucial again and again, because depending on the temperature and depending on the weather, the fish behave differently. Depending on the temperature, spots that are further up or further down may become active. As already mentioned, this is explained in more detail in the spot video. Or depending on the temperature, you may need to reel in slower or sometimes even faster. And additionally, the colors also come into play. It can definitely be the case that, for example, in cloudy weather or in rain, blue or violet colors work quite well. Often in sunshine, more natural colors work better, meaning silvery or golden colors. All of this needs to be figured out, and all of this must be tested by us as spin anglers. And that means for you as a spin angler that over time, you build up the largest possible selection of different spinners in different sizes, in different shapes, and in different colors, so that you are prepared for every weather situation and for the mood of the fish. So when I am here on my large main account and I'm looking for the Dragonfly Long, I of course see both categories of spinners here. So the very large ones, but also the small series. And for fishing here on the Belaya, this small series is really worthwhile, so you can very comfortably buy the entire series here. In addition, however, you must also replace the hooks step by step because, as already mentioned, the original hooks have very poor quality, and these hooks with the feathers attached at the bottom also have an additional attraction effect, so it is worth buying the entire series so that you have a basic setup here for different colors. And just as worthwhile, for example, is the Dragonfly Bell series. Here again, we have very good colors that regularly work extremely well. Copper colors, silver colors, and gold colors work consistently very well. And at night, black spinners also work very well, again and again. And the huge advantage of this series is that the weight is slightly higher. That means you can cast a bit farther with these lures. The spinners of the Aquila series are also repeatedly among the top lures here at this water. Here we definitely have similar colors, but in this case, we also have a slightly different shape. So it is worth regularly buying new spinners to always have more options to test the preferences of the fish. And the nice thing as a spin angler is that our lures do not wear out. Unlike carp anglers with their boilies, they have to buy new ones regularly. We only really need to buy again if a pike bites off a lure, and that is of course quite rare. In the video, What to Buy Under Level 20, this rod here is also recommended. This complete setup. Years ago, I already called it the Belaya setup because this setup is simply excellent for starting out on the Belaya, and the whole thing costs under 1,000 silver. In the latest version, I have made the setup even cheaper, so that it is easier to get started with fishing here on the Belaya. And if you then use this setup beyond level 30, you will have farmed enough silver over time to eventually buy yourself a higher quality reel for the end game. Starting with this setup, exactly as it is assembled now, gives you the opportunity to fish very effectively here on the Belaya well before level 20, so that you have reference points for where you can also fish quite well here on the Belaya in the spin fishing area. I will now show you, from north to south, the different spots where I fish regularly and also regularly catch fish. So we are now located at the very top in the north of the map, and this here is actually the first spot that works quite well again and again. However, this is also an extremely risky spot. So if you are not yet fully confident in how to properly guide and control a fish so that the fish goes where you want it to go, definitely take a look at the video about fish pulling off the hook. That explains what causes a fish to come off the hook and how you can avoid it better. It also explains how to fight large fish. So the big risk here at this spot is that the fish runs off in that direction. On the one hand, the current flows in that direction, and on the other hand, we are positioned in such a way that the fish can very quickly escape in that direction. And if you then have a very large fish on your setup, it is absolutely possible that it will snap your leader, and then of course your lure is gone as well. So in this area you can cast out casually. Usually you do not even have to cast very far here, because especially close and near the bank, you regularly find brown trout. This is also a spot that works extremely well later on for topwater fishing. The next spot is right next to it, so actually only a few meters further. And here it goes toward this ledge. So we cast to the left of the rock that is in the water or even behind it. In this case, cast out to the maximum and then casually reel in. Of course, always adjusting the speed. Maybe make a short pause from time to time and then just keep reeling in casually. And boom, something bites immediately again. In this case, we have a small grayling here. Very nice. The weight is already very good as well. And as mentioned, this is simply on the Dragonfly Long series. Affordable lures with a good hook work extremely well. You do not always need an expensive spiker lure, the ones you constantly see in the records. Most lures are only in the records because everyone always uses the same lures. Then you can of course walk a few meters further and cast either to the left or to the right of the rock, or do the whole thing from here so that you pull more against the current. So either we retrieve across the current or we retrieve against the current. That of course always has an influence, and depending on how fast you want to reel in, or how high or how deep you want to present the lure, you then retrieve either with the current or against the current. Here again, the position right next to it is also worthwhile. Here you can cast roughly toward this rock. You also regularly get bites at this spot. So cast out here as well, reel in casually, maybe a bit slower so that the lure sinks a little. And after 5 or 6 turns of the handle, you can also increase the speed a bit again. Always play around a bit with the speed or also make some pauses. So bring in a lot of variation so that you test and experiment where the fish are currently holding. And here as well, you can do the whole thing from the other side. So not retrieved with the current, but now retrieved against the current. Same spot, same area cast to, but in this case, against the current. That means I reduce the speed even further. And here again you can see the flickering on the spinner depending on the speed you set. Accordingly, you then get the flickering on the spinner indicator at the bottom. And this is exactly how it continues here on the Belaya. So the question of where is a spot on the Belaya actually answers itself, because there are spots everywhere. You can stand anywhere. The only real question is always, which lure is relevant? So, which lure do the fish want? You can just as well stand here, or another spot that I also test regularly is this area right here, casting into the reflection. That also works quite well again and again. And classic spots are also behind the tents, or then further south casting again toward this rock. That also works very well repeatedly. And of course we can also cast directly at the rock from different directions. Sometimes retrieving with the current, sometimes against the current. Very nice. It is a beautiful chub. Yes indeed. Over 1 kilogram. We gladly take that as well. By the way, brown trout, grayling, and chub are the target every Friday during competitive fishing in the live stream. So every Friday in the live stream, there is competitive fishing here on the Belaya. And it is always about brown trout, grayling, and chub. Yes, the same spot again, same rock, just now on the other side. So that is definitely also an option. And here we now come once again into an area that also regularly works very well for brown trout. So from here, you can of course cast into it quite well. And after the rework of the water, there is now also this large rock at the end. We can of course also use that very well and keep testing from time to time whether it also works from the rock itself. But here it is similar to the other end. It can of course be dangerous because a fish can simply run off, since we then have no real way to control the fish if it escapes upward. So here it is again a bit risky. You can also cast a bit further back there. That has also worked again and again, but this is only recommended if you have a very good setup with sufficient line capacity and drag power. Otherwise, it is recommended from here to cast downstream, so that the fish also flees in that direction when you hook a very large fish. So cast out casually, and then in this case again, retrieve casually against the current. And of course here as well, you now have to test again. Which colors are currently preferred, which speed, or even which retrieve method. So do you retrieve faster? Do you retrieve slower? Do you fish with pauses or stop and go? All of these variations simply have to be tested again and again. We generally do not want that one, at least not a large one, because such an asp can cause a lot of stress on our starter setup here on the Belaya. So to summarize once more, the most important points here on the Belaya are the right setup with a casting weight of at least 3 grams. If you're unsure, definitely check out the video, What to Buy Under Level 20. With this suitable setup, you then buy different spinners in different colors and shapes, and then also replace the hook step by step. So small spinners with feathered hooks are extremely effective here on the Belaya. And just as important, fluorocarbon leaders. There is already a suitable video about leaders, which also explains what influence the different line materials have. So make sure that you use a very thin fluorocarbon leader here on the Belaya. And then of course, the big testing phase begins. That means testing different shapes and different colors under different temperatures and weather conditions. So take one lure, cast it 2 or 3 times. If you get no result, you either move to the next spot or you change the lure. So every time 2 or 3 casts, add some variation in the retrieve speed. And if you still get no result, then you change the spot. Or if you already have a large selection of lures, you simply switch the lure. And with this method, you will gradually progress further in the spin fishing area and gain new percentages in spin fishing, so that later on you can of course use better and more advanced rigs. That is it for spin fishing here on the Belaya. That is how you get started here on the Belaya. If this helped you, leave a thumbs up and do not forget to subscribe to the channel. That helps me to keep doing my work. We will see each other in the next video or in the next live stream. Until then,